Al-Anfal 8.65. O Prophet, exhort the believers to fight. If there be of you 20 steadfast, they will overcome 200, and if there are of you 100, they shall overcome 1,000, because the disbelievers are a folk without intelligence. This surah clearly exposes Islam to be a belief system that not only encourages violence, but actually makes it a sacred duty for his followers to kill anyone who does not believe in the Muhammadan version of Islam. Not only is the all-forgiving Allah exhorting his followers to kill anyone who is not a Muhammadan Muslim, but he is also saying that all so-called unbelievers are so stupid that they will be unable to defend themselves and therefore deserve death. Al-Anfal 8.67. It is not for any prophet to have captives until he hath made slaughter in the land. You desire the lure of this world, and Allah desires for you the hereafter, and Allah is mighty, wise. Now, enjoy what you have won as lawful and good, and keep your duty to Allah. Lo, Allah is forgiving, merciful. This verse is in reference to the prisoners that Muhammad held for ransom after the battle. Allah the Merciful is saying that they should all have been killed. In addition, Allah is conveniently commenting that whatever loot Muhammad has plundered is lawful and good, because it was done in the service of Allah. So murder, rape, plunder and destruction are all perfectly fine with Allah as long as they are done in the name of Islam. Muhammad is also assiduously making himself seem very kind for having spared the lives of the prisoners, when in fact he only let them live so he could get more money from the ransom for them. In today's world, this is terrorism of the worst kind. 3. Assassination of poets who criticize Muhammad's murderous ways in the Medina. After the Battle of Badr, the people of Medina were horrified that they had given refuge to such a blatant criminal and his followers in their city. Many began protesting the presence of such violent and murderous people in their city. In a free society like pre-Islamic Arabia, the poets acted as society's conscience and were free to criticize, satirize, and examine the actions of people. The two most famous poets of this kind were Abu Afaq, an extremely old and respected poet, and Asma bint Marwan, a young mother with the gift of superb verse. Muhammad was enraged at their criticism. When he heard the verses composed by Asma bint Marwan, he was infuriated and screamed aloud, "Will no one rid me of this daughter of Marwan?" That very night, a gang of his followers set out to do the dirty deed. They broke into the poet's house. She was lying in her bedroom, suckling her newborn child, while her other small children slept nearby. The Muslims tore the newborn infant off her breast and they stabbed her to death. After the murder, when the Muslims went to inform the Prophet of Islam, he said, "You have done a service to Allah and His Messenger. Her life was not worth even 2 goats." A month later, the distinguished and highly respected Abu Afaq, who was over 100 years old and renowned for his sense of fairness, was killed brutally in the same manner as he slept. Once again, the Prophet of Islam had commented that morning, "Who will avenge me on this scoundrel?" This shows us exactly how much the tolerant and peace-loving Muhammad respected life. His followers claim that Muhammad was extremely gentle and loved children. Indeed, the horrifying way he had Asma bint Marwan's 5 infants slaughtered certainly attests to this loving side of Muhammad. All the Jews were becoming increasingly dissatisfied and angered at the deeds of the Muslims. The Jewish tribes were peace-loving, hard-working tradespeople whose purpose in life was to earn a decent living through honest means and hard effort. They were perfectly content with the religion of their forefathers and had never anticipated that the man to whom they had given shelter so graciously would turn into the power-crazed monster who was now turning around to attack them. Muhammad was in the position to carry out his hidden ambitions, which became clear soon enough. With the utmost disregard for all human morality, ethics, or respect for a human life, the Prophet of Islam systematically targeted and slaughtered the very Jews of Medina who had helped him when everyone else in Arabia was kicking him like a mad dog. He was motivated by these primary reasons: his fanatic greed for all the wealth that had been created by blood, sweat, and toil of the Jews, Our listeners should be made aware that for most of his adult life, Muhammad was not employable and unemployed, and hence coveted the wealth and produce of others. The Jews were the biggest obstacle in his plan to subject all of Medina, so they had to be removed by any means possible. His fear of all other religions. Muhammad was a pathological narcissist, a delusional megalomaniac, meaning he believed that he was the supreme ruler of the world. Anything that threatened this sick fantasy of his had to be exterminated. Since the religion of the Jews rejected his pathetic claims to divine rule, they were the targeted victims in Medina, just as the polytheist Arabs had been his victims in Mecca. The incidents narrated below demonstrate the horrific depth of Muhammad's atrocities. Keep in mind that Muhammad is the model of good Islamic behavior, and you will realize how Muhammad and Islam advocates genocide in the name of their cult belief system. 4. The siege of the Banu Qaynuqa, April 623 AD in the Medina. In order to get full control of the Medina, Muhammad needed to get rid of all his opponents. The strongest of these opponents was Abdullah ibn Ubay, a powerful chief who was allied with the Jewish tribe of Banu Qaynuqa. This tribe was also the weakest because they were made up of craftsmen, in particular goldsmiths. By attacking them, Muhammad knew he could plunder a huge amount of wealth and weaken Ibn Ubay. Muhammad needed an excuse to attack them, so he made a girl married to one of his followers pretend that she had been teased by the Jews. The Muslims blockaded the fort of the Banu Qaynuqa for 15 days until the starving Jews surrendered. Immediately, Muhammad was ready to kill them all, but Ibn Ubay seized hold of Muhammad and protested. Muhammad's face became black with rage as he shouted, "Let go of me!" But Ibn Ubay was adamant and shouted back, "No, by Allah, I will not let you go until you deal kindly with my allies. 400 men without armor and 300 with, who have always supported me against enemies. And you want to slay them all in one morning? By Allah, if I were in your place, I would fear a reversal of fortune." At this threat, the cowardly Muhammad turned pale as he realized that all the people of Medina were against him. He hit Ibn Ubay on the face and ordered that the Jews be kicked out of their own homes. All their property was seized and looted. Many of the prettiest women were taken as prisoners to become sex slaves. Muhammad, as usual, kept 1/5 of the enormous booty for himself. This is the way he repaid the kindness of the Jews of Medina, who had given him shelter and refuge when Muhammad had run away from Mecca in fear. The revelations in the 8th surah of the Quran were clearly in reference to the Banu Qaynuqa and anyone who opposed the Muslims. Al-Anfal 8.55. Lo, the worst of beasts in Allah's sight are the ungrateful who will not believe. Those of them with whom you made a treaty, and then at every opportunity they break their treaty and they keep not duty to Allah. If you come to them in the war, deal with them so as to strike fear in those who are behind them, so that they may be remembered. Here Muhammad's acts of planned terrorism against the Jewish tribe is justified by Allah, because according to the merciful Allah, non-Muslims are the worst of beasts. So it is perfectly alright to murder, rape, torture and pillage the non-believers. Not only that, but Allah is advising Muhammad and the Muslims that when anyone protests against the injustices committed by Muslims, the Muslims should make sure and deal with them with such violence that it will strike fear among anyone who may think of supporting dissent. This proves that the Quran is nothing but a political manual for controlling people with terror. Not even the fascist armies of Hitler engineered such devilish ideas.